Watch him throw the ball, we gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through fourth and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders, heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Die.
Yes, sir. Welcome back to another episode of the Trap or Die podcast. I'm your host of Trap or Die podcast, Mual. The fellas is on their way. The fellas is on their way. Let's get the administrative items out the way at first. As always, appreciate you all checking in live right on the YouTube side. If you are why this is a Word document, of course. Hold on 1 second. Can I'll worry about that later. Okay. The fellas is on their way. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're on the YouTube side, audio side. We appreciate you checking in as well. On that side, make sure you hit that follow button. We appreciate it. And give us a rating and review if you can. It takes 10 seconds to do so, and it's free to show your support that way. Schedule wise, all 32 will be live tomorrow, 7 p.m. I was supposed to do the morning show Friday. Things came up, so I'm off this week. We back on Friday. We're gonna talk some more about. I'm also thinking about for college prep, like realistic Washington fan. I see you dropping some names in there. I'm gonna let you know right now, bruh. When this NFL season, bruh, maybe Dre. Matter of fact, they backstage. Maybe Dre and AJ can help you out. But when it's NFL season, bruh, I don't know who Trey Amos is. I don't know who Nash Huchemaka is. I don't know nobody about nothing. I watched the ball, so I know some names, but like deep into the draft, yeah, nah. I need to do my homework. And that's also why we get draft experts on around this time. So we're gonna start getting them on, get like the little primer going, get some meat in the bones or meat in the potatoes analysis like in March. But that's what they did for, man. So Dre, AJ, what's up with y'all, man? How y'all doing, man? It's good to see y'all faces, bro.
I know, man. I feel like we don't do this that often since we only do it once a week now. You know, I'm used to the Tyson three times a week. Football season, man. That was such a fun season. It's just crazy that we back to I guess the off-season schedule, which is weird for me.
Nah, Sunday ruined my damn week, bro. We can't even start yet, and it was ruined.
Oh man, them parlays wasn't hitting, huh?
Oh my God, the parlays. Facts. The parlays ain't hit. I went over. That's the worst part of it all. Like I'm grateful like that. Like 3 weeks in a row, I hit something. But like to go that hard that I did on Sunday, and then I went over is one thing, and then the Eagles just completely whooped the Chiefs' ass, bro. Like I was the person who made a bet. Admittedly, I bet with my heart. Like my heart said it was the same exact feeling that I had when I bet with the Commanders last week. Or in the championship game. I was like, my heart wants the Commanders to win. My mind saying these boys is tough. I don't know how it's about to happen, but we need to make something shake. Like I need 30 turnovers, et cetera. Same feeling that I had when I bet with the Chiefs. I was like, man, I don't know how the Chiefs going to do it, but I hope they win. And when they went down 17-0, bro, I said, bro, it's over.
But see, bro, that's
over.
The Super Bowl result didn't surprise me. Like I expected the Eagles to kind of win. I didn't want to say it. I didn't even want to talk about it. I had no plans to really watch it. But what shocked me was how bad they beat the Chiefs. Like that's what got me. Like I thought the Chiefs was going to at least throw a punch in the game. The Chiefs didn't even throw a punch. The most talked about thing from that game was the damn halftime show.
Yeah, man. I mean, Super Bowl was disappointing. I thought that Andy Reid was going to come out with a different strategy to slow down that front four, but unfortunately they didn't commit to the run. So pretty much Patrick Mahomes is just out there getting punished. I mean, it just taught you something.
Full man rush.
It just taught you something that like the kryptonite of Vic Fangio's defense in regards of running the Eagle show is a true dual threat quarterback. Now, once you really put that in perspective, it's harder to go you can still try to win with your front four, but at the same token, that person has the ability to escape the pocket, climb the pocket, and extend those plays. Even though Washington's final score didn't necessarily do them any favors as far as the conference championship game, they put up a better fight than the Chiefs did offensively. Chiefs did amazing defensively. If they could have got some offensive production, they would have won.
Even though Philly did move the ball, like even with that PI, I don't think that was a PI, the one on AJ Brown. But even still, like the ball that Jalen threw, I was like, yeah, like he was locked in from the rip. Like they had these moments where they was moving the ball, but like they wasn't giving Saquon shit. Like Saquon wasn't going to go off and dude made sure that wasn't going to happen. But also like I thought about that too during the game. I said, it's so crazy because like, I mean, you can say it wherever you want, and F the Philly fans on Twitter, like they don't bother me. But the true thought is like, Brad, the fact that Kansas City they barely got past the 50. I don't even know when they got past the 50. It was in the third quarter. I think that's the first time they got past the 50, bro. Like they was
first 9 drafts.
Bro, they was getting smoked, bro. Like up front, they was getting smoked. Pat Mahomes looked uncomfortable. The comment about the kryptonite part, I think for Washington specifically and Jaden, like Jaden is special. And for that matter, like a Lamar Jackson could get the job done. I think there's a plethora of quarterbacks who can really dot up a Vic Fangio defense. Like Matt Stafford had a really good opportunity. If it wasn't for, guess what? Them boys in the trenches, Jalen Carter. Really, honestly, he had the season-saving play, honestly, of that moment in that game, but also it's what helped them catapult themselves into the Super Bowl. Because, like, if he doesn't get to Matt Stafford on the final drive of that sack, you have a butt-naked, I think, Cooper Kupp wide open over the middle for a touchdown, a walk-in touchdown. It just depends, bro. And I think the bottom line, when you look at that game, all it reminds me of is like, first off, Philly's in our division, so that's about to be a headache. But then also, I think from a truly competing standpoint, where it's like you're talking about you match up well in 90% of the areas against Philly. I think Washington probably about 2 years away. My opinion.
But you know what, Maul would, and you may be right as far as like man for man, roster for roster, but with the quarterback, you still gonna have that chance. And the goal for Washington is we don't have to, go out there and think we have to be desperate to fix everything this offseason. The goal is just to keep getting better because with Jaden Daniels, you're going to, I've been saying this for weeks, you're going to have a chance to win against anybody, even the Philadelphia Eagles. Like I said, the goal now is just getting better. Like you may not be man for man better than those guys, but with Jaden Daniels, you have that chance. Like I said, now this offseason is just going to be about how can we close that gap against the Eagles? Like I said, we may not, get over that gap, but how can we get closer and close that gap to the point where every time you play the Eagles, you're not worried about playing the perfect game? Because right now you have to play the perfect game to beat them. Well, especially this year with this roster. As you can see, turnovers. I mean, even though it happened in the second game, the second game we turned the ball over 5 times and we somehow was able to win that game, but you couldn't do that in the conference championship game. It was a whole different animal. You started turning the ball over in that game, you gave yourself no chance. But again, now it's about making the game a little bit easier for Jaden Daniels. Like, sure, he's going to give you that chance to win the game, but how do we close the gap so we don't have to be perfect to beat these guys? Like, we don't have to be A++ to beat Philadelphia.
Yeah, I think it's gonna take a little minute. I don't think you're wrong though with the Jaden aspect. Like, I think that's ultimately that's the equalizer. Point blank period against a lot of going up against a lot of teams. Especially this season where you're going up against some top tier teams throughout the entire season. I mean their opponent schedule, it's gonna be tough. So I think that's the ultimate equalizer. But I also think when I say like 2 or 3 years away, 2 years away is what I really think. I think what that means is like you have to. A lot of people think about everything that has to happen this offseason or they itemize every single thing that Washington needs, and they think that you can solve 80% of that like right now. And that's where I say like we're gonna go into this season optimistic for sure, but like not knowing, or maybe I might be wrong, not knowing where they need to address like the gaps in the following off season, if that makes sense. Like everybody has those. Like this year going into 2024, we knew that they didn't have. We thought that the offensive line was trash. We knew that they didn't have receivers, or that it was a question mark. And we knew that they didn't have DBs, and there was a question mark about their edge guys. We go into this offseason knowing that, well, technically tight end too, right? So we go into this offseason knowing that tight end is still there. Now offensive line is a problem. As the season went along, we saw that receivers, two receivers on the roster. Now running back has popped up, right? Running back is now something where you have to figure out some answers there. And then cornerback still is in the it's less of an issue, but it still needs to be addressed. And then your whole entire defensive line, like what the fuck are we going to do about Deron Payne and John Allen? Not like you got to move them, but it's like, what's the plan? So like, and then the edge guys, like your entire defensive line, like you go into this all season with like so many questions, like people, and that's why I titled this one like, what will Adam Peters offseason plan be? Because like with 28 unrestricted free agents, you got to figure out which ones are important to you to re-sign, because you got to keep some of them. And then how are you going to replace them? Because these 1-year rentals, like people think that shit's sweet. Not saying everybody, but some people think that shit's sweet to the point where you can just keep signing people to 1-year deals. Like that's a long-term success plan. You need to figure out who you want to keep around. And you also need to go into this offseason with the intentions on trying to find some people that you keep around for the long term that's actually going to fit. Like you can't be hiring these goddamn renegades, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting offseason overall. Each team goes through a process of having guys on 1-year contracts, trying to prove themselves and making the best of their opportunity. I mean, you look at the Eagles. Mekhi Becton is one of them, a guy who was a top pick some years ago as a left tackle who also played some right tackle this year, played some guard. That's someone that I personally wanted Washington to give a chance to be a swing tackle or get some guard reps. He made the best of his 1-year deal with the Eagles, Zach Bond. You're talking about someone who's been with the New Orleans Saints, didn't make his mark until this year and became an All-Pro, had an impactful Super Bowl game and a season overall, 1-year deal. So you're going to hit on some, you're not going to hit on other guys, and you just hope that you can hit on some free agents that just need better situations, and on top of that, that you get the draft well. Because if you look at the Eagles, a lot of their players have youth on their side. They're still in the rookie contracts, from a Nolan Smith to a Jordan Davis to Jalen Carter to Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. Those guys are all on rookie deals. So you can easily take advantage of that. You just have to build a collection of assortment of veterans and guys that maybe didn't work out elsewhere that might need an opportunity, new breath of fresh air. I mean, I think I would even categorize Frankie Louvu as one of those guys. He wasn't a marquee player coming from the Jets or the Panthers, but he was able to get his footing here with Washington, become an All-Pro himself, surrounded by Bobby Wagner and the other guys on that defense. So that's where you got to just lean on your scouting department, pro-wise and collegiately, and hopefully you hit on some gems in the free agency and the draft.
And I think the whole goal of the 1-year thing last year, and I mentioned this when it happened, when we were signing those guys, was who's going to be the guys that make the stay? Who's going to, convince the front office, I'm here to, prove myself to the point where you can give me more than a 1-year deal. And I think we did find that out about some guys, like Jeremy Chin, for one. That's a guy I would like to bring back, and I think you could put him along in that core group. I mean, Bobby Wagner again. I mean, I don't know how much Bobby has left in the tank, but I mean, Bobby showed that he can still play at an all-pro level at the middle linebacker position. That's another guy you bring back. So I think that number becomes shorter this season when you enter that offseason. Like, I don't think you're going to see as many of those 1-year deals because you're starting to identify the core players of the team. You're starting to establish that. Again, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, because there was a lot of chatter, obviously, last week about Myles Garrett. Who knows what Cleveland's going to do as far as that goes? Who knows if Washington is even going to be in that conversation? And the only reason I'm mentioning that is because if you're talking about a Myles Garrett, you're talking about giving up draft picks. But I mean, assuming you are keeping your draft picks and you're not making a big that type of trade to give up a lot of draft capital, you're identifying more core players in the draft, like some of those bookend guys. Obviously, last year we got our quarterback. We got Mikey Sanders still, who's you're going to book him at starting cornerback wherever. I don't know if it's going to be the slot boundary this year, but he's a starter this year. Johnny Newton, I don't think he had the greatest rookie season, but I do think there's something there that you're still going to work with. Brandon Coleman, I mean, who knows what you're going to do with him, whether you want to keep him out at left tackle or you're going to slide him in the guard.
But it's like, where you going?
Yeah, right. Where does he fit along that lines? But I think those are some of those guys that have kind of established themselves as, we're going to be here. We're going to be a part of this core. So now you add to that this year. And there may be, like I said, a couple of mercenaries this year, but it won't be as many last year because you had some guys establish themselves. So it's going to be an interesting offseason to see how Adam Peters goes about it, because as we've been talking about, there are some holes to fill. I mean, but and I know there's going to be some impatient fans because of what we accomplished this year. We went to the NFC Championship game. So it's going to be a lot of disappointed people if they're not going out there making a lot of splash moves. But I think they're going to be methodical about this offseason. I think they're going to approach this the way they say, we're just going to add some guys. Maybe there's going to be 1 or 2 splash signings, but I don't think this is going to be like one of those we're going to win the offseason type of, things where they're going to go in and they're just going to throw money out at everybody just because people, and a lot of fans are looking at that big cap figure. They're looking at that number like, we got so much money. We could spend here. We could spend there. We could spend there. But then as we're sitting here talking about in the show, we do have some guys to bring back. We do have draft picks to kind of allot some money to. So that number is inflated in a lot of fans' minds. So I hope a lot of fans have some kind of patience when it comes to this offseason approach with Adam Peters.
Well, I was even going to say, I don't even think the free agency pool don't have big names.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of free agency pools don't have big names, but the benefit of being
they got big names, they just wash. Oh, that's disrespectful.
I like the cornerback group though.
They're a little older.
I mean,
They long in the tooth, but they not washed.
I think the benefit that comes into play for Washington and where you can get more players to add into the depth of your team and building your roster is the fact that you made a championship game with Jaden Daniels in the bunch that you did have. So veteran players will be more inclined to taking those 1-year deals just to make something shake, because the market is not going to be hot for certain positions. Wide receiver is going to be hot. Cornerback could be a little hot just because of the need there. But I think Washington has already identified how they feel about that market, which is why they made the trade for Marshawn Lattimore. I don't expect them to be big-time buyers, but maybe they could get a Charvarius Ward on a 1-year contract, you feel me, or a 2-year deal. But I don't see them spending big money on like a DJ Reed or what have you. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be a great opportunity having that building piece in a Jaden Daniels at quarterback to sell when you're trying to pitch, aside from just the figures. You could say, hey, we got Jaden, and this is what we plan on doing with the allocation of funds and acquisition of players. I think if they can pull off this Myles Garrett trade before free agency period, that will help big time in how they can go about approaching their offseason. Because if they can't pull off Myles Garrett in advance, then you gotta possibly look at signing the Khalil Max of the world, maybe entertaining conversations with DeMarcus Lawrence and other pass rushers on that outside.
Yeah, see, it's a couple of things. The 1-year deals, like another reason why I'm like those things I feel like aren't sustainable long term. It depends on how they feel their roster out. And I think Washington in itself is an attractive thing, but I also think like there's a balance that Pete. Now this is us talking on Trap or Dive, right? Maybe we can find a GM that wants to get on the show, and we can talk to them. But I feel like there's a balance, because like if there's an approach to say like how many, or not how many, like who's all out there that's willing and we can get on like 1 or 2 year deals at certain positions, right? I would imagine that they're less inclined to buy into whatever Washington got going on from a culture building standpoint. Like, not to say that they're not going to necessarily like come in here and just be defiant, but I feel like if things don't go their way, they don't have any investment into the team or to anything like what Washington is building, because like they're going to be gone at the end of the season anyway. So if y'all want to cut me or if y'all want to bench me, I don't give a damn. Like, do what y'all want. I'm gonna do what I want, and we're gonna have this stalemate. And but I think that aspect,
you block your blessing for the next team.
But so, I mean, but people do it though. I mean, not like directly like tarnishing their name, but like in a way where it's like in a way where you're talking about somebody who is disgruntled. Like people make it known. And I think the biggest one to even think about is how I think about Stephon when he was with Minnesota. And then I think about Buffalo, where he's just super animated on the sideline. I don't even know exactly everything that was going on in Buffalo, because that was just swept under the rug. And it's like if you knew, you knew. But at the end of the day, you talk about a person, and Stephon, who's a talented player, but like if you bring him around the team, I don't think he's a huge problem. But what happens if you lose a couple games where he wasn't involved to the level in which he should be? Or maybe a person on the defensive line has a problem with their teammate, and ironically, Deron Payne and John Allen. But I'm just saying, like, they got a problem with another teammate, and now they can't get along because they're not rushing on the same page. And I'm just thinking about from those standpoints, is like I feel like they need to start identifying their guys, and that's kind of what Dre you kind of alluded to when I talked about that part. Is like, they do have a sample size or some people that they can actually start picking from. That's their current free agents. And then the second thing, I like Charvarius Ward on like a 1 or 2 year deal. I think that'll be a great pickup. If you can have him on the outside and put Mikey back in on the slot, that would be a great deal. Also think about the Myles Garrett situation. Like when you're talking about trying to figure out what you want, I have a hard time believing that this is going to get done anytime soon. Like any movement with Myles. Like I think the Cleveland Browns are adamant on trying to save their relationship with Myles, and I don't think Myles has any intention on playing for Cleveland again. And I think that can mean the Browns trying to pull his card, and that can mean leaking into the training camp, leaking into preseason, leaking into the regular season, whatever that means. So I don't even know what that shit is going to look like from now on, which puts a wrench in Washington's plans, in my opinion. And it also brings up the idea of other trade options, such as maybe an individual named Max Crosby. And with the Vegas Raiders inquiring about him. And then other people on the offensive side of the ball, like Deebo Samuel, who came out and announced that, they are letting him look for trades. Now, granted, I'll give y'all the floor because we're just introducing Deebo. If we're spending assets, I'm at the point now where I only want to spend trade assets on Myles or Max if they're available. Other than that, like I'll only be open to other offensive options if they got the inclination, Adam Peters and company, that Myles Garrett and or Max Crosby are not available for trade. That's the only way I'll be okay with any offensive moves at this point.
Yeah, I'm okay with trade, and I think too many times when we think about trade, we think about solely the assets from that year. But you can literally, from right now, you could trade picks from 3 years from now. Like it doesn't have to be the 2025 season. It could be 2026, 2027. So I think that we got to keep that in mind when we think about trading players. A guy like a Deebo Samuel fits in perfectly with what Cliff Kingsbury does with this offense. They need someone that can create when they got the ball in their hands. They need a yak guy, a rack guy, or whatever. I know a lot of people run the PFF and numbers from the year, but it doesn't tell the whole story of the 49ers season. They were off completely as an offense. So a lot of those guys' numbers on that side of the ball don't look great. But Deebo is a playmaker. That's somebody that you can move a late round pick for and figure out the numbers on as far as how much of the contract the 49ers will pick up and add that type of talent to your room for nothing, in a sense, when you think about what that person can actually bring to the offense. I mean, just look at how they try to utilize Diami Brown in this offensive scheme. That's what they would be able to do with a Deebo Samuel and use him in a jet sweep package, RPO game. Deebo hasn't even played with a quarterback with the running talents of a Jaden Daniels. So it's like if you can put him in the backfield with an Austin Eckler, maybe even a B-Rob or whoever they pick up later on, you just bring a whole different dynamic to the offense. You're not looking for Deebo to be number one. You're looking for him to be a contributor, be another playmaker on the field. That's just how I look at it when it comes down to that situation. So I'm comfortable if they do what they want to do. I know that Deebo has Washington in mind. Personally, is one of the targets of where he would like to be. Once again, Adam Peters knows him pretty well. So we'll see if that gets done. But, I mean, I think he would be an amazing addition. I don't mind trading for players. Like I said, this free agency class is not the greatest. And I think the more playmakers that you can get on this offense is what you need. And he's a playmaker, straight up.
I mean, I'm with Mual to an extent on, as far as when I'm entertaining trade offers for this offseason for this team, I'm looking at those edge rushers. Those are the guys who attract me the most. Those like Max Crosby and Myles Garrett, when you talk about those two guys, I'm willing to give up whatever it costs to get one of those type of playmakers on this team because that changes the defense. Like I think one of those two guys changes every level of the defense, and that's what this defense is missing. You have it on offense, you have that game changer on offense, you get me the game changer on defense. However, I mean, I'm not totally against a trade for a Deebo Samuel, and I'll even add Cooper Kupp, who we talked about last week. I mean, those two guys. And the only circumstance I'll entertain those trades is if we're talking a 5th or 6th round pick. Anything more, I'm starting to say no. Like, I don't want to give up anything more than that for those guys. Like, if you can get away with a 5th or a 6th round pick, I know that sounds cheap, but those guys are making a lot, and they're also coming with a reputation at this point that they may not be the guys that they once were in their career with a bigger contract. So again, you may be talking about, is the Rams or the 49ers going to take on these guys' contracts with some of these trade proposals? Then maybe it sounds a little bit more attractive. And, I mean, when you think about a Deebo Samuel, yeah, I mean, he may have had an off season as far as injuries go, but, as AJ said, he is a playmaker and he does kind of fill that role that you did see last year, what they tried to do with a De'Ami Brown. Like it would be interesting to see what how Cliff would utilize that guy into the offense with Jaden Daniels. But again, it would have to make sense, like asset wise and contract wise. Like I'm not too keen on giving up more than the 5th round pick for either of the guys I just mentioned. But if you can get them for around 5th or 6th, it wouldn't hurt my feelings a bit, because when you start talking about those 5th, 6th round picks in the draft, then you start talking about, guys that are maybes. And, but I will preface this by saying that Adam Peters comes from an organization in San Francisco where they kind of made their bones on some of those mid-round picks. Like that's where you kind of get your name as a GM. Like, you're kind of expected to make your name in the 1st or 2nd round and the 3rd round, or I mean, not even the 3rd round, but I'll say the 1st and the 2nd round. But when you really make your name as a GM or as an organization in the front office is what you kind of do with those mid-round picks, like the 3rd, 4th, 5th. If you could turn those guys into NFL quality starters. And the 49ers had a big reputation of that, and Adam Peters comes from that. So I don't want to diminish the value of those mid-round picks. But again, I mean, when you talk about 5th or 6th round, I mean, it's hard to say you would ever get a guy that would be as good as a Deebo Samuel or Cooper Kupp, even at their age at that point.
Yeah, high speed. So a couple of things. I halfway agree with Deebo. Your statement on Deebo. You said he doesn't offer enough as a receiver. The age part don't matter to me, because I'm willing to take on Cooper as well if we're talking about for like a late round pick, and a restructured contract at that. But like Deebo is a person. Like I think of Deebo the same way I think of Cordarrelle Patterson. But like it's kind of different because Cordarrelle moved primarily to running back, whereas Deebo is still a receiver who just has a running back role, with San Francisco. I would rather, even at this point, wait for San Francisco to outright cut him if they have to, right? Because you get a situation where you're talking about a contract is a little bit fresher than what it is now. You can maybe even restructure it if you acquire him, but I don't think nobody's going to restructure for like they might get a better contract on a restructure. Anyway, they're gonna have to do something with the contract. And I think he's going into like his last year of his deal. I haven't looked up his numbers. I mean his contract numbers yet, but I think he's going to the last year of the deal, if not the last 2 years. So there's something to be said about that. But like the reason why I even hesitate to begin with, and why I felt that way about offering enough as a receiver is because you're going into this offseason where you need the rack guy, which is what Deebo offers. Yards after catch, but you also need somebody who can win on all 3 levels and can really break down coverage. Deebo, for just as much as conversation as it was about Ayuk in San Francisco world, whatever it is, they had issues with both of those guys, whether it was man or zone. I don't know exactly what it was, but Deebo, that was kind of one of his main things is like his separation ability. And I think for Washington, you need somebody alongside Terry who was that 1A or 1B. And I don't think Deebo has ever been like a 1 period. like in my opinion, he's a versatile playmaker, and I think any creative offensive coordinator would love to have Debo in their offense because you can use him in so many different ways. But that's part of the thing where you're talking about trading for a receiver is where I look at, like, if I'm trading for a receiver, I need that guy to be something special, special from a route running standpoint. But again, if you're talking about a late round draft pick, I'm okay with it. Got to restructure the contract. But I would prefer them to get to a point where they're doing a cut, and you can come in, or Debo can come around with a clean slate from a contract standpoint. Because at that point, you're talking about somebody who you can probably negotiate with where it works out on both sides. Also, the injury part. I'm sorry, we didn't even mention that. He does get hurt often. So I appreciate you bringing that up. That was another thing I was hesitant on. That's so frustrating. Like, there's several players in this, like Stephon Diggs. I would love to have him. He just came off ACL injury. Chris Godwin, I'm cool with him. He drops a lot of passes, which is annoying to me.
The injury,
but coming off an injury, bro. There was another guy off the top of my head that I'm struggling to remember right now. But so many other players James Daniels. Y'all may not know him. Offensive guard. I was doing my homework with him with some people that I know in Pittsburgh. I studied him when he was a free agent going into his free agency year before he signed with Pittsburgh. He's a dog, but he's coming off an injury. You would love to have him at your right guard while Sam Cosmi is recovering from his ACL injury. But, I mean, anyway, that's my point.
But Mark, there's a guy that AJ, I was going to say, is a guy that AJ doesn't like who is kind of fitting what you're talking about as far as separation-wise. That's Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton is one of the top separators out there in the league. But AJ doesn't like him for whatever reason. He makes those charts. He looks good on those charts.
Yeah, I mean, he's just not a player that I like. I don't like guys with inconsistent hands. Also, for the Washington fans out there, Darius Slayton is currently dating Ben St. Juice's sister-in-law. So yeah, but that's just a sidebar. When it comes to injuries, I mean, that's why most of these players are in free agency. If they were healthy, they'd be getting paid by their damn team. So it's like that is the other side of free agency, like why guys hit the market, because teams are scared to commit long-term contracts to them, and the teams that are willing to do so don't necessarily have the full knowledge on them hands-on. They just do their basic physicals and go from there. But the teams that know them the best don't want to commit huge dollars, kind of like how we seen Luka Doncic get traded to the Lakers. You know, Dallas sees Luka every day and did not want to give him a supermax contract. Whereas Lakers just know the name, see what he does, but don't really know the work ethics fully, and they're willing to part assets to acquire that player. So it's like with Debo, man, any team that would be trying to acquire him would not be looking at him to be at number one. Yeah, it just really boils down to what you want to do with your team and how you truly want to build it out. I love Stephon. I think Stephon can be a number one on Washington, but they also need more guys. When we look at the wide receiver room, it's Terry McLaurin and Luke McCaffrey. Those are the only two guys under contract. You don't necessarily want a Noah Brown coming back. You don't want a KJ Osborne coming back.
You can bring OZ back.
What you mean? All right, I want you to finish. Actually, go ahead.
When I say that, meaning like those guys, KJ Osborne didn't play here, but Noah Brown didn't necessarily bring you anything of excitement to go into this pool of wide receivers in free agency and the draft and say, oh, I have to retain him. You want more from that position overall as a collective. So I just think with how the offensive scheme is predicated, they need those guys that can take a 5-yard slant and possibly go 20, 25, 30, or even longer for a touchdown, like how they were hoping to be able to do with Zacchaeus, Crowder, and in their opportunities when they were able to take advantage against certain opponents. So I just think, man, it's just going to be an interesting period. But even with the Myles Garrett thing, that has to be figured out as soon as possible, because then Cleveland loses the leverage on getting assets. So yeah, it's just certain things. I mean, Debo's not getting cut, so that's why the permission has already came in. Cooper Kupp ain't getting cut. That's why permission has already been given. Uh, Things are just spiced up as we get closer to combine, but I definitely know I can speak personally that Debo is interested in coming to Washington. I don't know anything else that's happened conversation wise, but he's personally interested in coming to Washington. And I think a lot of other guys would be interested too. It just really boils down to how Adam Peters suited making these moves and acquisitions trade wise, and also from a draft capital standpoint. If they see some guys within the college ranks that they feel could be there when they're on the clock. But it's going to be an interesting offseason, and I think they got a lot of options of what they could do sitting at, what is it, the 28th or 29th pick? 29th. Yeah, you could do a lot of things there, but I definitely don't count on them drafting a player first round. If they can make this Myles Garrett thing happen, that's definitely going to Cleveland.
Yeah, see, high speed, you know a little something about James Daniels. That's why I'm looking at you like that, because you know James Daniels. He a dog, bro. But it's unfortunate he got hurt, and everybody in Pittsburgh said that, you know, he tracked out. Like he kept up the same level of play there. One person said he was pretty average, but shout out to him. That's my dog. But he's also.
Can I ask you?
Well, hold on. Let's do that. Yeah, let's do that after we do the ad break.
Okay.
Because I'm actually 20 minutes?
We late.
25 minutes? Yeah. Let me get into that, and then
I want to ask this when we get back though. It's on this subject, so yeah.
All right, man. You got the flow then. But in the meantime, let me tell y'all something about them boys over there at Underdog Fantasy. This is basketball season. Football season is over. It hurts my heart to say that, even though in a couple of weeks, honestly, you know, UFL is back. We ain't gonna worry about that right now. When your favorite stars score buckets, we're alley-ooping you an opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog. Underdog is one of the leading sports apps, and you can play now in your state. Do you want to win up to 1,000 times your money? You can with Underdog. To play, just choose whether a player will go higher or lower than one of their stats, such as points, assists, rebounds, and more. They've got all your favorite leagues, teams, and stars to choose from. You can create entries with all basketball picks or mix and match across other sports. I don't know why I say miss, but I meant mix. You can play with as little as $1, and if you get everything right, win up to 1,000 times your money. So turning $1 into $1,000 with just your hoops knowledge. Millions of fans have already won billions making picks on Underdog. Their app has over 100,000 5-star reviews and millions of players. This week's gonna be a little tricky. I did get, unfortunately, an L served to me in Underdog by one pick, bruh. But they issued my no sweat back. I don't know exactly what I'm looking at just yet in the NBA, but I mean, I definitely got to play now. You know, I got some things in my wallet, bruh. You can't never go wrong with KD, right? His PRA, points, rebounds, assists is at 37.5. He's up against Memphis tonight. That's gonna be a showdown. Might want to take the higher on that. John Morant. He has 22 points. Where's his PRA? Points, rebounds, assists. I don't see it. They don't have it up there. But he had 22 points. You know, he led a shot against the big dog, so you might want to go higher on that. I'm gonna stop there before I get myself in trouble in terms of everything locked in the NBA. I got to get locked in myself. But that's tonight. Here on the podcast, you'll hear that, and maybe I'm right. Anyway, download the Underdog app and sign up now using promo code TRAPPERDIVE to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on the fun when you sign up with promo code TRAPPERDIVE. Claim your special, get up to $1,000 bonus cash instantly upon your first deposit. Must be 18 years or older, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. If you're concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. If you're in Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. If you're in New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Let's get back to the show with the fellas. All right. Talk to me, Dre. What's on your mind, bro?
No, and I wanted to kind of continue the conversation because you mentioned the cat from the Steelers, James Daniels, the OG, and there's been people been asking me about Mekhi Becton, but I wanted to ask you all, what is the biggest need right now when we talk about this offensive line? Because when I look at the offensive line, I feel like the biggest needs on the offensive line are the tackle spots. Man, I say that because I'm not quite sure about Brandon Coleman at left tackle. I don't think he's a tackle. I mean, I think he may fare better as a guard in this league. And if you're talking about moving a Brandon Coleman over to left guard, you got Biadasz at center, obviously. Now, Cosme's hurt. We don't know when Cosme's coming back. I do feel like Allegretti's good depth. Maybe he can last at the right guard position until Cosme gets back. But Wiley, I don't know if I want to go on another season with him at right tackle, but do y'all agree that we may be better suited along the interior offensive line than we are on the edges of the offensive line right now?
I mean, I think you need to add players there no matter what. I think when you look at a guy like a Mekhi Becton, he brings the opportunity of being able to play left, right. He can play everything on the O-line except for center. And I think you need more of those type of guys within this particular roster built out, unless you can hit on a guy in the draft. If maybe you can get a Jordan Mailata, even a Trey Smith, who's a free agent from the Kansas City Chiefs. I think he was drafted in the 4th or 5th round. If you get hit on one of those guys, but don't know how long Cosme's going to be out for, but definitely not going to make the season opener. Andrew Wiley, you don't necessarily want him playing right tackle. Maybe you could slide him into the right guard position while Cosme is recovering. I think Wiley is still under contract one more year. I could be wrong.
No, he is.
Yeah, and then Brandon Coleman, you move him into left guard, but now you got a hole at left tackle. So yeah, I think that's definitely where you want to just solidify pieces that can play multiple positions, and you definitely need a backup center. Definitely can't roll in the next year with Dieter as a backup center at all. Like, it's so interesting how the Ricky Stromberg thing played out, that he wasn't even able to beat out a Dieter.
Bruh, you still got the floor, AJ. But that I swear, like, y'all know Ricky was that was another guy, like, but bruh, like, if there's no more evidence that they was really just trying to get guys up out of here, bruh, from the other regime, bruh. Like, I'm not saying Ricky was out here he cooking whatever team you on. I don't even know what team you on right now. But I'm just saying, like, there was some people who could have really helped this team. You had Mike Adida out there getting cooked. And y'all said he was better than Ricky Stromberg. And Ricky Stromberg is in the preseason having solid days. Yeah, I think he had like 1 or 2 bad plays that really stood out. But like for overall, like a solid day. And they said, yeah, we don't even want you, bro. That's just a stopping point because you brought him up. I haven't talked about Ricky all season, but continue, AJ.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just think you just need depth overall, like O-line, especially when you're going against teams such as the Giants and Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Eagles with Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, if he comes back, Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, even Dallas with, Uzi, if he comes back, Mozzie Smith, Micah Parsons, D-Law, whoever else is going to be on those front. These are teams with solid enough front fours. So you just need to be able to put your best guys out there on the offensive line and not get in the situation like the Kansas City Chiefs having to move your best lineman from guard to left tackle. So, yeah, I think those are the key elements. You just want to have enough depth at that position to where if injuries does come across, you can easily plug and play guys.
What's up, everybody checking in? Also another world, Joseph. Appreciate you all. Caps, what's up, player? I saw you earlier. Make sure you had that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're just checking in, and appreciate that. Yeah, Dre, for me, I ain't gonna lie to you, it's every position except center. Like it's really
so you
really
think all
like
of the upgrades?
I think all of them need answers. And while that kind of deviates from your question, like upgrade, I think you have to find a way to bring some guys in where it's like, for example, Nick Allegretti. The thing that's been bothering me this entire offseason is like, how do you like move on from Allegretti? Like, what's the proper way to do it if you thought that you had better opportunity somewhere? And without like smooth like benching him because you gave him that contract. And I think it's to bring competition in. But like not competition that's on his level, somebody that you think is actually better than him. Like bring him in and see how that works out. But tell Nick, bro, we got to get better. And if you can't do it, we gonna like this your comp right here, bro. This your op. I mean, he your teammate, but that's your op too. So like, how you finna act with him in the locker room? So I think that applies for left guard. I think right guard is going to be open competition because of the fact that Sam Cosmi hurt. Obviously, it's his job when he comes back. But that's the reason why I said like a James Daniels, for example, because he's coming off of injury. He's been gone since like week 4. But at the same time, if you're talking about somebody who can, at the very least, play a reserve role for somebody who's coming off I think he had like an Achilles injury. Reserve role, if he plays good enough in preseason, training camp, things like that, he was good enough as a starter to play. So like maybe he earns himself some money on a 1-year deal playing good enough in place of Sam Cosmi. So like that makes sense. And then at the same time, if he's good enough where he's healthy, kick him over at left guard. If y'all think he's better than Allegretti, like it is what it is. You got options, but to that point and to continue, you need to figure out who's going to be at right tackle. Because I think the biggest thing with me, I thought that this offensive line was solid, but they didn't like move people off the ball. And I think that's kind of the frustrating thing. Like they'll create your alleys, your lanes. They create those windows for running backs to exploit, but they're not necessarily moving people off the ball. They did a lot of why did the word's gone. Anyway, they created the alleys. And I think that's good. But like if you're talking about somebody who like you need to get a yard or two, bro, they not getting like that push that you really need to build your running backs out. Like the running backs have to do a lot of work. So that's kind of where I'm at with this offensive line. And I think when you look at people in free agency, I see people saying some names like Ronnie Stanley. I see a Cam Robinson in there. I mean, those are the bigger names. And I'm not saying that Washington shouldn't go for some of these guys, but like figuring out what Allegretti's going to do, figuring out what's best for Brandon Coleman. It's another thing, and I'll get y'all the floor back like that. I get paused with Coleman because it's like you were very intentional last year about what position you wanted him to play and what you evaluated him as, and y'all evaluated him as a left tackle. So are y'all willing to pull the plug after a season, or are y'all going to give him some more time to figure out what can he do at left tackle, whether it's from a development standpoint or like an actual skill issue? And I think that's kind of something where it's like, we don't know those answers right now. We don't know exactly what they're going to do. So it's hard to kind of make those projections. I don't have a problem moving him to even right tackle. Like he's played all 5 positions, but what do they want to do with a Brandon Coleman who like played good ball, but like when he gets beat, it's the same exact issues. I don't know.
Hey man, that's part of the hard conversations at the end of the season. Some guys that you ended up signing or drafting aren't going to develop into what you thought they would be. I think I think that can be said with a lot of people in this draft class. From the Luke McCaffreys to the Ben Sinnetts, like to Brandon Coleman. They may not be what you actually envisioned for them. Johnny Newton, even Mikey Sandistro, they brought him in to be a slot corner, and he primarily had to play on the outside, So things changed on the fly. I think it's just identifying where you went wrong and trying to go different directions, because I don't think you have time to sit there and wait for Brandon Coleman to get his shit together at that position. You're going to have to experiment with him elsewhere. And if you don't, you're just wasting another season at left tackle because those issues aren't going to go away. So it's going to be it's going to be an exciting offseason for us for sure, covering the team, the fans, and just seeing what moves they make, because a lot of the holes that they went into last year with still remain. Some may not have been holes to some people. Let's take running back. Early in this conversation, Mual brought up running back this year. Running back was a hole for me last year, and still a hole going into this year. Even though Austin Eckler is under contract, B-Rob, they need more. They need more of a dynamic playmaker at that position. And like you said, even with the offensive line, you need guys to have more of a nasty streak to them and play with more play strength. Like, yeah, you still need a lot of things. So I see a lot of people saying like 2 years away. I really don't know. If you hit on the right guys, man, you can get this thing rolling so much faster than 2 years. But it's crazy because they went to a conference championship.
I said 2 years specifically in terms of
competing with the Eagles.
No, having an opportunity where you look at both rosters and you say we stack up well across the board on 90% of the positions. Like that was just a random percentage that I shot out, but like where you're more equally matched than you aren't. So that's where I said two away. That don't mean you can't beat the Eagles next year.
Yeah.
But I'm saying in terms of like where you're going into the game, you're like, yeah, it's like it's head to head. Like we really locked in this year. Like I think you're 2 years away from that. But because you have the equalizer and Jaden, that don't mean you can't win in 2025 or that you can't like have a shot to win and beat these guys. But I think from a roster standpoint, it's going to take more than 1 year to get that.
Right, and not even just the Eagles, Maul. Right now, you probably can, make the argument that we don't even have a better roster than Detroit and even San Francisco to that point.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
right, yes.
but again, you have that right now. As it stands, you probably have the best quarterback in the NFC, which puts you in the conversation in these contending conversations that we want to have.
Great, probably, or you do.
Probably what? Oh no, you do. No, you have the best quarterback. I'm not going to argue against that. No standpoint. No. I'm just saying, there may be some people out there that don't want to admit it yet, but you're not going to get that argument out of me. I'm going to argue for Jaden Davis. I think he's the best quarterback in the NFC. But I'm glad I asked that question to you all about the offensive line, because that's one of the things I've been kind of struggling with when I see fans kind of talking about it. Because for me, I'm like, we have, and I get what Maul is saying as far as you do have the center solidified, but when we talk about the tackles, this question mark is at both tackle spots right now. Now, to me, there's not a question mark about Brandon Coleman as far as him starting in this league. I do think Brandon Coleman's a starter. I think he's really athletic. I don't know if the rookie year, in some of the struggles that he had at left tackle was due to the experience or the lack thereof of that, or if he's just probably better suited on the inside. But either way, I do think you have a starter there. So I do think you have two definitive starters there. And whenever Cosme comes back, now obviously his injury is playing a part. Now, Cosme's going to be a starter when he comes back, but we don't know when Cosme comes back. But that's why I was saying, do we think right now, are we more worried about the outside than the inside? Now, I'm all for bringing in, the talent. If you can get a Mekhi back there from the Eagles. I don't know what the Eagles' plans are. I'm pretty sure they will want to sign the guy back. There's going to be more competition for the guy. But I would love to bring a Mekhi back there in here. I know early on in his career, I think he started out at tackle. But obviously, he had to move inside. I would, if you do sign a guy like that, you would prefer to play him where he played the strongest at, which was in the inside for the Philadelphia Eagles. But for me, it's the question of the tackles. Like, again, I'm not comfortable going into this season with Andrew Wiley again on the right side playing right tackle, and we still have the question mark of, is Brandon Coleman a full-time left tackle? Like, can Brandon Coleman hold this spot down? Like, can we afford to go into next season saying that, we're going to go in with Brandon Coleman and hope that whatever struggles he had in his rookie year was just rookie year struggles, then he's going to excel in his sophomore season? So those are the questions I've been having when I look at the offensive line. So that's why I wanted to ask you all, and you all, I trust you all's judgment. You all give good insight, but I'm a little worried about the outside for me personally more than I'm worried about the inside. Well,
let's end it here with this question. With every part of this conversation on this show that we had to this point, this is our 2-minute drill, by the way. Got to get the segment in. With everything that we've talked about on this show today, and in the chat, let's hear your thoughts as well. Is there pressure on Peters this offseason to actually begin to like visually like close that gap between where we are and where the Eagles are? Do you think there's pressure? I mean, honestly, it's competing in the NFC. Let's put it that way. Not even just the Eagles. The teams that you mentioned, Lions, San Francisco. Is there pressure on Peters to close the gap?
Oh yeah, because now there's actual expectations. Last year, when Adam Peters and Dan Quinn took the job, it wasn't an expectation of them being in a conference championship year one. It was everyone preaching rebuilding, even though they were saying completely different. They said recalibrating. Everyone was like, "This is rebuilding." So now, when you take those rebuilders of the world, and now they're actually seeing the building is built, but it's just not open. It's just not open for you to come and visit yet. They're expecting to come and visit this year, and visiting would be San Francisco 2026 Super Bowl. I don't think it boils down to necessarily being neck and neck with the Eagles. It's just putting yourself in a better situation to win these games against the better teams. You've shown that you can beat the Detroit Lions with what you even had as a collection last year. But now, in a moment, if Washington had a better roster of guys, they could have won. We could have been watching them in the Super Bowl 2 days ago. You feel me? But they didn't have dynamic enough playmakers to compete. And even when you hear Jaden Daniels in all of his media opportunities he had on Radio Row, he essentially boiled it down to the Eagles got a whole bunch of superstars, and he started naming them. The A.J. Browns, the Saquons, Devontae Smith, Jalen Carter. Now, when you look at Washington's side of the ball, who do I have? Like, even Jaden is a savant of the game. He understands that no matter how much I can do at this position, coaches can put us in positions and prepare us. You still need difference makers out on the field with you in order to make big time plays. And he realized that Washington does not have that right now. Adam Peters realizes that. Dan Quinn does. And I think you see Adam Peters turn it up and go make some things happen and bring in the right guys that will continue to add on to this culture that have already been developed in the league, and guys that are going to be coming out of the collegiate ranks to add into this formula. I think that's where the Eagles got a good balance. Howie Roseman has done an amazing job of having veterans and younger players to work in unison with one another. And I think that's the same formula Washington has to go with. That's why it's important to bring in integral parts back like a Bobby Wagner, a Zach Ertz. I mean, so many people wrote off Zach Ertz, including myself, maybe not being able to stay healthy for the entire season. He did a pretty damn good job staying healthy, and he was Washington's number one tight end. Whereas your second-round pick in Ben Sinnott got you 5 catches for 26 yards and one touchdown on the season, and looked lost in a lot of plays when he was having snaps. So it's just creating that pool of youth, but also veteran savvy players that can still get the job done. And I think that he feels the heat. Also, Josh Harris, who's going to be cutting the checks, feels the heat and also understands that we're right there. We just need to make the right additions in who we bring into this situation. So yeah, I hope that we see that take place. I'm not saying that they're going to spend every single dollar that they have, but I think they're going to be wise in the talent that they go after in free agency via trade, and also how they go about building out their draft board.
Yeah, I mean, I think the pressure is obviously going to be there because of what you accomplished this year. People look at you and they say, "Hey, you went to the NFC Conference Championship game. how do you keep or sustain this level? Like, I don't think the expectation should be that, yeah, you're going to be in this game every year, but the expectation should be that you should be amongst the top teams in this conference every year at this point, and people look at Jaden Daniels. We're talking about him as a top 5 quarterback. So you're talking about this team as a top 5, the top 4, the top 3 team in the conference. But from the inside, I don't think the pressure will be as big as it is from the outside. And I say that because from the inside, they know that there's still work to be done. They know that, this is still a thing that we're trying to build up to a standpoint. But I do think that, now that you know how good of a quarterback you got, you have to kind of capitalize on it. I was having a few arguments on Twitter. This is one guy, he loves to kind of just go into these rabbit holes, and he sends you these links and everything and
Road
whatever.
chaser.
Yeah, Road Chaser, man. And Road Chaser's a good guy. He's a smart dude and all, but he
them links be killing me, bro. Because he just send
I
them
can't
jokes,
read
and
them
I'm
all.
like, bro, like where did this come from?
Yes. I mean, Road Chaser is one of those guys. He sends you 100 links, about where you are, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I say all that to say that, I do think that you stay the course. You build this team how you see fit. Like Adam Peters, he can't get desperate at this point because, when you start talking about expectations, you start talking about, well, you got an NFC Conference Championship game this last year. A lot of people can get into a desperate situation where they feel like, man, we got to go out and make some panic moves. Now, I don't think it's the point of where, year 2, you're talking about panic moves for Washington, but I do think they.
Dre, what's a panic move in your opinion? What's the move that could happen in 2025 offseason that would be quantified as a panic move in your eyes?
I think something like multiple one for me, and I don't want to just put this one thing on a pedestal, but I think going out there and signing a T. Higgins to a $30+ million deal would be kind of viewed as a panic move, especially if you kind of make other moves similar to that. You may not spend as much money, but there will be other moves that's kind of similar to a T. Higgins move where you're saying, man, I have to sign this $30+ million wide receiver to play on the other side of Terry because I need the perception to be up here with me right now. And I don't think a T. Higgins moves necessarily would signify out on the field that you're ready to contend with the Eagles, because as we've been talking about this whole show, we have holes at the offensive line. We've been talking about the defensive line. Now, I wouldn't view a Myles Garrett as a panic move. I will view a Myles Garrett or a Max Crosby, if you were to make those type of moves, as a move that would significantly make this team better, as the move that drafting Jaden Daniels did. Like Jaden Daniels, now you didn't know Jaden Daniels was going to be this good, but you knew that you were addressing a position of need in a major way, and the edge rusher position is a major need in a major way. Yes, we need more talent in the wide receiver room, but I do not think that you need $30 million to add to that room with one player to make that room significantly better. And a lot of fans do. I see a lot of fans out there say we have to go out there and sign a T. Higgins. Now, again, I wouldn't be mad if Adam Peters figured out that, this is a guy that he needs to sign, but I do feel like that's one of those moves you make to kind of ramp up the sense of urgency for the team. So, I mean, no, when I talk about panic moves, that's something that I'm kind of talking about. But I don't think the pressure will be with Josh Harris and them. I mean, I think there's time. I think they know that they have to, build. I mean, we're sitting up here talking about Howie Roseman and how he's built the Eagles. Howie Roseman has been with the Eagles damn near 20 years. I mean, he's been a general manager for 20 years building this thing up for the Eagles. He's had time to build this thing up. We are in year 2, and a lot of fans are sitting up here saying, we must do this. I even see some fans talking, looking back on the season and criticizing what Adam Peters did in the draft last year and be like, man, well, if he would have did this, we would have been over the top here, and I'm like, well, damn, it was just year 1. I mean, we went to the NFC Conference Championship game where we didn't even expect to play in this year 1. We got to give this guy kind of time to build. Like even what Mual is saying, we are 2 years away from just getting on the level of the Philadelphia Eagles as far as man-for-man roster-wise. Like Philadelphia Eagles has the best roster in the NFL. There's no doubt about that. But that takes time. They didn't do that in 1 year. They didn't do that in 2 years. So you have to give Adam Peters that time. But I do think the pressure is there to say that I have to capitalize on what I have in this rookie quarterback. Well, he's not a rookie anymore. He's going into a sophomore season. But you have to say, I have to capitalize on how great this guy is right now. And I have to bring in talent on him, especially right now. We have him on a cheap deal. You still have him on that rookie contract. So that's a real window.
Yeah, I'll close out with I do think the pressure is on AP. I think that who was it that said that High Speed mentioned the Marshawn Lattimore trade. That's when the clock's been ticking for him. I think that was a long-term play. But I also understand the sentiment when you do trade for Marshawn Lattimore. That's a big move. Whether however you want to slice it, it's still a big move. Because like your long-term plans include him being like your number one cornerback. So I get what you're saying, High Speed. But I think for Adam, you're talking about a person who is what you got 28 undrafted or I keep saying undrafted. I'm thinking of UDFAs, but you got 28 unrestricted free agents. You have questions that we already talked about: offensive line, defensive line, right? You have 2 receivers on your roster. You have Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz. AJ mentioned Zach Ertz. Super productive. They're also old. They're aging vets. Like, what's your plan at tight end and linebacker? Somebody in the chat mentioned what's dude McGee, the rookie. Where is he at? Am I tripping? That's his name, Jordan McGee. Yeah, Jordan McGee. Yeah, they asked about Jordan McGee. Like, what's going to be the plan for him in year 2? Also, like, if you decide to move on, what's his name? JP Finley mentioned the dude from the Kansas City Chiefs, Bolton. Like that linebacker, like he may be an option, but if you move on from Bobby, like that's probably like your next. From his perspective, I'm not saying that's going to happen. He's just speculating. He's not reporting. But like that's an option. But like, what's the plan? What's the plan at tight end? What's the plan at linebacker? You don't have any in terms of free agent. Who's currently on the roster. You don't have any dogs at tight end. Like John Bates not even around. He's your blocking tight end for real for the most part. You only have Ben Sinnott. And AJ talked about them. Linebacker, you only have Jordan McGee and Frankie Louvu, right? Jury's still out on Marshawn, Ben, and McCaffrey for all of their own reasons, right? And there's others people that the jury's still out on, right? So like for Adam Peters, I think the pressure from those football aspects is on him. You're gonna have to figure out how do you replace some people, or how do you even keep them around and entice them, like the free agent side. Like how do you entice them to stick around, especially where some of these guys may have better offers or additional offers in more favorable areas or more favorable teams, landing spots, right? Like Washington ain't gonna be the only desirable option out there for free agents, especially Washington's own free agents. So you're gonna have to battle that. And I think Adam Peters is up for the task. Like, and when people say pressure is on somebody, like, hey, pressure make diamonds. Like they say that all the time. Like some people are really built for this moment. And I think that's a good thing about like seeing Adam Peters work in this space. Like last year, he was playing with house money. This year, AJ said it, the expectations rise. You got plenty of money to move around. And then you also got to think, I talked about 2 receivers on the roster. Terry McLaurin had a career year, a hell of a season. He's going into the last year of his deal with no guaranteed money. You're going to have to find a way to up him. So that's probably like your more immediate, one of your more immediate moves in terms of like being a GM here for Washington. Like how do you address that situation with Terry? So like that's what I say pressure is on him. I think he knows the pressure is on him, but does it phase him? Is something where I don't think this is something that phases him. I think this is something that is probably he welcomes and probably something that he'll embrace, knowing that he has like Washington has nothing around him except for it to ascend. You can't fuck it up, but I don't think that Adam Peters is in the business of fucking things up for his team. So those are my final thoughts. Anything else before anything related to that before we get up out of here? I got to do the next show. So
no, I mean I think we good, man. It's just gonna be an interesting offseason. I think that I'm seeing guys like Disco, who tunes into the show saying we don't know Adam Peters' philosophy. Yes, the hell we do. Like it's right there in your face. Just pay attention to it. Just how they keep telling us to pay attention to Kendrick Lamar's performance, right? Pay attention to the details. He's showing you what he's capable of, what he's willing to do, and he's also a competitor at heart, and he wants it. And we've seen San Francisco every year, even if they made it to a Super Bowl, always try to improve themselves from a roster standpoint, whether it be going and getting the Christian McCaffrey, Javon Hargrave, Trent Williams over time, whoever the case is. So, yeah, I just think it's going to be an interesting offseason, and I'm looking forward to seeing what gets done and getting our guy Adam Schefter back on here, break some news. And hopefully we talking about Myles Garrett being a Washington Commander. I think if you learn anything from Sunday's game, being able to get home with 4 changes the dynamic of your defense all the way.
All right, there it is. Appreciate everybody who's all checked in live, man. We appreciate that. If you are late or catching the replay, man, again, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. We definitely always appreciate that. Got 3,000, man. Let's see if we can get the 4K before the season starts. Definitely appreciate that. AJ, man, I think you did a flu game today, bro. I can hear it in your voice, bro. But you look a little healthy, you know. So
bruh,
that's no weight. You good,
bro? I'm going through it. Like, this is the first day since like sometime last week that I've been feeling somewhat better. But then I'm also moving. Dad's in the hospital right now. COVID and flu, just a bunch of crap.
Yeah,
but I definitely appreciate being able to do this show with y'all. Yeah, my voice sound a little bit raspier than I would like it to be, but I'm gonna be back in my grown man status hopefully in a couple of days. feel like I sound like I'm going through puberty, low key. Like,
you be all right, bro. Prayers up to Pops. Making sure he good, bro. All right, that's gonna wrap it up for us again. All 32 tomorrow. Commanders morning show on Friday, bro. Yeah, he good, dog. But yeah, take it easy. We up out of here. Peace.
Chop it down. Chop it down. You gon' chop it down. Chop it down. You gon' chop it down. Damn, set. Watch him throw the ball. We gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through 4th and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders, heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Die.